Bob and I will be back at 6.
We'll see you soon.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight, Diane Sawyer.
Good evening. The question tonight is whether the Soviet Union will be a union much longer. The Baltic republics have now been officially recognized as independent states by a number of countries around the world, though not so far by the U.S. And speaking to the Soviet parliament in Moscow today, Mikhail Gorbachev seemed to accept the possibility that the Baltics aren't the only republics on their way out. We begin in Moscow with our bureau chief, Jim Laurie.
Mikhail Gorbachev today struggled to remain relevant. After his 3-day detention last week, he said he was a changed man.
I have returned from the Crimea to a different country as a person who looks at everything with different eyes.
He pledged no more barriers to a market economy and private property. He promised new national elections, including a vote for president, as soon as possible. He called for the signing of his Union Treaty of power sharing with the republics. With no real alternative, he finally gave in to Baltic demands to be free of Moscow.
They should be given the right of independent choice. We must start at once business-like negotiations with those who want to leave the Union.
But if Gorbachev was a new man, his transformation may have come too late to keep the Union together. Republic leaders who spoke today made plain the Union Treaty is no longer acceptable. The republics now want nearly all the power. Nursultan Nazarbayev, leader of Kazakhstan, the second largest republic.
I was an active champion of the prompt signing of a Union treaty, but the recent events showed how volatile the old pattern is. The treaty now needs revision.
Nazarbayev told reporters only a voluntary economic confederation was now possible. The republics would have their own parliaments, own armies, and conduct their own foreign affairs. Boris Yeltsin, the man who is now seen to wield the most influence in this fragmented country, stayed out of the political debate today, attending a Russian Orthodox service for the victims of last week's coup. It may be that Yeltsin will have to broker a deal to forge some kind of new, looser relationship between Moscow and the republics. Former Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze views this new situation with alarm.
I agree the agreement has collapsed. Today's session clarified nothing. I fear there may be a period of chaos ahead.
There have been suggestions Shevardnadze might return as Soviet foreign minister. When he was asked about that tonight, Shevardnadze replied, "Foreign minister of what? We must see first if there'll be a Soviet Union." Jim Laurie, ABC News, Moscow.
It's one thing to declare your independence and have other nations recognize it. It's another to wake up this morning to the reality of the Soviet presence. The government of Lithuania today began issuing its own travel documents and claiming control over its own borders. But achieving real independence takes time. ABC's John Donovan is in Lithuania.
When Lithuania sent its own customs officials out to control traffic at its border with Poland early this morning, the Soviets, already doing that job, made room for them. But they did not leave. The same happened at Lithuania's international airport here in Vilnius. The Lithuanians began stamping passports. Their uniformed Soviet counterparts went on checking travelers' documents also. It was a good example of Lithuanian-Soviet cooperation, but whether it was a good example of Lithuanian independence is another question. As Lithuanians kept chipping away today at the base of the statue of Lenin removed last week, no one knew for certain whether Moscow has accepted that its authority here has run out, at least in the eyes of most of the world. That, say Lithuanians, is why U.S. recognition is so important. Lithuanian officials say that if the U.S. is not seen taking Baltic independence seriously, then Moscow might feel it doesn't have to either. Yet with real independence now more likely than ever, the mood in Vilnius these last few days has been curiously flat. No cheering or church bells. On the number 11 bus out to the suburbs, one passenger said that everything has happened too quickly to sink in. It is still too early for questions on how an independent Lithuania is supposed to work. How, for example, a nation linked for half a century to the Soviet economy will survive on its own. Or what should happen to the thousands of Russians living in the Baltics. When one Russian in this group said he wants to stay a Soviet citizen, Lithuanians told him he should accept a Lithuanian passport or leave. There are also fears about security. Only yesterday, the Lithuanians arrested 3 Soviet Air Force majors who were dressed in civilian clothes and driving around with loaded weapons. It is not certain what they were up to, and the incident clearly made Lithuanian police nervous, even if it was a rare instance of Lithuanian authority having the upper hand. John Donvan, ABC News, Vilnius, Lithuania.
As Western nations moved quickly today toward establishing diplomatic relations with the Baltics, there was a notable holdout, the United States. President Bush is still taking a wait-and-see approach. Here's ABC's Britt Hume.
The president is supposed to be the man who takes the lead in the Western alliance, but after an overnight visit from Canada's Mulroney, he found himself next to a man who had already done today what Mr. Bush was still not prepared to do: formally recognize the Baltic republics.
I think we have certain special responsibilities. We've already stated our conviction that not only will they be free, but they'll be independent. And I'd just like to see a little bit more, a few more cards on the table.
The president was vague about what those cards might be, but he was a bit more explicit about what worries him.
I don't want to be a part of making a mistake that might contribute to some kind of anarchy inside the Soviet Union. And I don't see that we could do that, but I want to be darn sure we don't. And these developments are happening very, very fast.
Though he and Mulroney said they would provide the Soviets food if it's needed this winter, Mr. Bush was again cautious about economic assistance to shore up the Soviet economy. Too many uncertainties, he said, about the shape of the country.
Some want to stay affiliated with the center. And to do that, if they're going to get aid from the West, they're going to have some agreement, a treaty, some understanding, so people know who they're dealing with.
Administration officials say the issue of economic aid could take a while to decide, while recognition of the Baltics could come in a matter of days. The main obstacle, they say, is that some of the borders in the region are in dispute, and the administration wants to be careful not to appear to take sides. Britt Hume, ABC News, Kennebunkport, Maine.
In a moment, spreading the blame for the coup. Some fear it's turning into a witch hunt. And here at home, college-bound students are scoring lower on their entrance exams. And rollerblades, the potential for thrills and disaster.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Scope.
A kiss? Maybe later.
It's so bad you can taste it.
A kiss?
The sticky, pasty film inside your mouth.
It's pretty bad.
You wake up with every morning of your life. Morning breath.
I'll be right back.
Fight morning breath with Scope. Antiseptic Scope kills on contact 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath.
Come here, you.
Hook her up, sweetie pie. I'm all yours.
Antiseptic Scope. It's the best thing first thing in the morning.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered this 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
The Mikhail Gorbachev who stood before the Supreme Soviet today was a man still in search of firm footing, still chastened by the upheaval of the past week. He said that he himself had to accept some of the blame for the coup. He said he had been indecisive and too tolerant of his enemies. No longer. The search for those enemies has now fanned out across the Soviet Union, and as Rick Enderfurth reports, a lot of people are caught in the net.
Anatoly Lukyanov was forced to resign today as chairman of the Soviet National Parliament. He was clearly distressed after accusations that he was the chief ideologist behind the coup, although there has been no direct evidence. Where were you on the day of the coup and in the days that followed? So many Soviets are being asked that question that some people fear a witch hunt is underway.
If we start a witch hunt now, asking who said what, who kept silent, who was against, well, we in the Soviet Union have great experience at this kind of thing. Are we going to start arresting them during the night again?
Clearly the coup involved more than the 8 members of the emergency committee. but it also appears old political scores are being settled.
Different political groups and different walks of society are trying to take kind of a revenge against the other group.
There is particular concern about the purge now taking place in the Soviet military. 80% of the high command will be replaced. Boris Yeltsin went on television last night to urge that the law be respected.
No revengeful acts are permissible. Otherwise, we wouldn't be Democrats. That would be just another extreme. The law is the law.
Maybe so, but as one reformer here put it, those who suffered from the organizers of the coup have a right to point fingers. Rick Inderfirth, ABC News, Moscow.
If fingers are being pointed, it is inevitable that many of them will aim at a group of right-wing politicians and military leaders who have leveled vitriolic opposition at Mr. Gorbachev for months now. However, they're on the defensive. Here's ABC's Jim Hickey.
They call him the Black Colonel. Viktor Alksnis, leader of Soyuz, the ultra-right-wing faction in the Soviet parliament. He and other members of Soyuz are suspected of playing hidden roles in last week's coup. In the Supreme Soviet today, Alksnis angrily denied that, saying, in effect, prove it. But he also was one of the few to speak up for the imprisoned coup conspirators, saying they should have a chance to defend themselves. The Black Colonel is a real colonel in the Soviet army. He and other members of Soyuz believe the most important problem facing the Soviet Union is its disintegration, and they have been out to prevent it. Alksnis is from Latvia. He admits belonging to a group which last January tried to seize power there to prevent its independence. 5 people were killed. In rally after rally, Alksnis cries, to the Union, yes, but to its breakup, Soyuz had the largest voting bloc in the Congress of People's Deputies, but the dramatic events here have changed things.
A lot of deputies have changed their mind. They became suddenly more progressive than they were 2-3 months ago, even including, some members of this fraction Soyuz.
Colonel Alksnis admits public opinion has turned against Soyuz, but only temporarily.
When the economy collapses, when thousands of factories close and millions of people are on the street demanding bread, not democracy, then the time will come for extraordinary measures.
For Soyuz, that means emergency rule. They call it order. Their critics call it dictatorship and say the Black Colonel and his comrades still need to be watched. Jim Hickey, ABC News, Moscow.
And another Soviet official has reportedly committed suicide. Nikolai Krychina managed the Communist Party's business affairs. The KGB says he jumped out of the window of his 7th-floor apartment. No indication that Krychina was involved at all in the coup. One note on the health of Mrs. Gorbachev. There have been reports that she suffered some kind of serious illness brought on by the coup attempt. Mr. Gorbachev today played down those reports, saying everything is okay, there is no danger. We'll have more news in a moment.
My dad had ulcers, so when my stomach started acting up, I was afraid to go to the doctor. But finally, I went. Was I relieved when my doctor said Mylanta? He said it was indigestion, not an ulcer, and my kind of indigestion called for a strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. In fact, Mylanta is the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Now available in cherry and cool mint cream flavors.
If you love your pet, watch this. We'll prove that you can keep fleas and ticks off your dog or cat with Heart's Blockade. Fleas are all over this untreated lab dish. We've sprayed the left side of this dish with Heart's Blockade, while the right side remains untreated. Watch how Blockade repels the fleas. They literally jump to the untreated side. Ticks normally want to crawl to the top, as they do in this untreated tube. See how the Blockade-treated cap of this tube repels ticks? They stay at the bottom. Block fleas and ticks from your pet with Heart's Blockade.
First, we created the LS400 luxury sedan. Now we've taken everything we've learned and condensed it. Introducing the Lexus ES300. All the performance of a sports sedan, all the luxury of a Lexus.
We've been hearing a lot this past week about whether we're witnessing the breakup of the Soviet Union. It's hard for us to imagine what it would be like if whole regions of the U.S. decided to go their own way. So we spoke to Soviet affairs expert Condoleezza Rice to try to get a sense of what it would really mean for a country, many of whose republics or states never wanted to be part of the nation in the first place. They are 100 million people, dozens of cultures, diverse, independent. They have really only spent the last century together because of the sheer binding power of Soviet domination.
It will be interesting to see whether the republics in a looser confederation or in independent status are actually able to overcome the ethnic and cultural, historical animosity among themselves.
As it stands right now, 6 of these republics have declared their independence unconditionally. 2 others are on the verge of doing so. Another, Armenia, says it will remain part of the Union for a transitional period, but a strong Armenian independence movement is actively trying to move up the timetable. How important are these parts to the whole? The map can be deceiving. These 9 republics together make up only 7% of total Soviet land. But what valuable land it is. Most of the country's grain and vegetables and fruit are produced here. So are much of its iron and steel and cotton. Under the old system, the Central Soviet government would have bartered commodities around to where they were needed. Latvian tractor parts for Siberian oil, for example, or Ukrainian corn for cotton from Uzbekistan. At least it was always supposed to work that way, and even in an independent future, they may have no choice.
So there's still a great drama to play out. These are not economically viable independent units right now.
And then there is the question of the enormous Soviet armed forces. What becomes of it? Would independent republics maintain their own armies? Naturally, the West is concerned about who would control nuclear weapons. And will there even be a Soviet government to run a military? So far, a swirl of uncertainty.
I would assume that there will be some effort to negotiate basing rights for Soviet personnel, if in fact there is a unified Soviet army. And that in itself is in doubt today.
It's as if the republics of the Soviet Union have finally been roused from 74 years of deep sleep. They stretch, they look around, they know it's time to begin to unravel history. But there's such a lot of history to undo. And one other indication just how tough it might be to undo that history. Boris Yeltsin said today that when it comes to those republics where large numbers of Russians have settled, the Republic of Russia will hardly agree to give away these territories just like that. That from Boris Yeltsin. In Yugoslavia, another country that seems to be breaking apart, the fighting is getting worse. Today, the National Army used tanks and planes to bombard a key town in Croatia, one of 2 Yugoslav republics that have declared independence. More than 20 people have been killed there since the weekend. When we come back, we'll have a report on a new danger signal for American education.
This is when I love Grape Nut cereal. I've been out here all morning, and I'm still going. Does your cereal do this? Try breakfast with Grape Nuts for a week. I did, and I feel great. Grape Nuts is this natural energy source, and it's fat-free. It tastes so good, too. It's hearty. It's got what you need to help keep you going. If you want to feel this good every morning, try Grape Nuts for a week yourself.
Breakfast with Post Grape Nuts helps keep you going strong all morning long.
When 1 in 4 adults looks at dairy food, their stomach says stop. Say no now or pay later. Antacids aren't made for this problem, called lactose intolerance. But new Dairy Ease is. It's not an antacid, but a natural nutritional supplement that helps comfortable digestion of ice cream, cheese, and milk. Now enjoy dairy food as naturally as everyone else with pleasant-tasting, chewable new Dairy Ease.
The same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin.
Same as in Motrin, in non-prescription strength.
If you want the same medicine found in prescription Motrin, wouldn't it just be simpler to ask for Motrin IB? Non-prescription strength Motrin IB. Accept no alternatives.
A small touch, a certain look. It's the little things that are worth the most. Which is why every Delta faucet gives you more than you'd ever expect for the money. giving you the money for those things you can't even put a value on. Delta, the way water is brought to life.
Shoot some slices, shoot some shreds, shoot some salad, 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 salad shooter.
Presto Salad Shooter Slicer Shredder. Point and shoot right where you want. Clean up easy, dishwasher safe, store anywhere.
Salad shooter.
Original, cordless, and professional salad shooter.
Here at home, Americans have their own force to be reckoned with, the apparent continuing decline in American education. Word today about the SATs, the test that about 1 million high school students take each year as part of their college entrance requirements. The 1990-91 results are in, and the scores are down. Here's Bill Blakemore.
It's an all-time low for America's verbal SAT scores, down 2 points from last year. It's the first time the national average math scores have dropped since 1980, also down 2 points. Some of the decline may be due to a slight increase in the number taking the SAT for whom English was not their first language. But critical, say officials, is the fact that too few students take challenging courses in American schools. College Board President Donald Stewart.
What we have to do is get more students on the academic track who are in fact taking rigorous academic courses so that they will score well.
Students who had also taken a standardized achievement test required for admission by many of the top-ranking colleges averaged on their SATs 100 points above the national average. Stewart fears this may signal a growing inequality between an educational elite and everyone else.
All students can learn, but they have to be given the chance. They have to be given the preparation.
Next Tuesday, the first day of school for many, President Bush will address the nation on school reform. This decline in SAT scores can only add to the urgency of his remarks. It's been 2 years since he and the governors held their education summit, and there's still no clear sign of national improvement. Bill Blakemore, ABC News, New York.
A new report on the rising number of children growing up in poverty in this country. According to the Children's Defense Fund, more than 1/3 of all Hispanic children here, about 2.5 million of them, are living in poverty. And their numbers are increasing throughout the 1980s at a faster rate than any other ethnic group. A story tonight about a health report that hit an innocent bystander. The report involved cantaloupes from Texas. The cantaloupe growers of California have been paying the price. Here's ABC's Brian Rooney.
They were giving away cantaloupes at the California Capitol today, giving them away because the melon farmers are having a hard time selling them. California melon farmers are picking and shipping only about 20 or 30% of their crop.
The pipeline's plugged, the fruit quit moving, and we're harvesting a perishable commodity here that had to stop.
The melon market crashed on August 17th, the day after the Centers for Disease Control released a report saying that back in June and July, 400 people got sick eating cantaloupe contaminated with salmonella. Salmonella causes nausea, diarrhea, cramps, and fever. The report said the outbreak came from melon grown in the Rio Grande area of Texas and served mostly in restaurant salad bars. That report never said anything about California melons, but it was released right in the middle of the California melon season. Scared by press reports of the epidemic, people stopped buying Texas and California melons, even though the Food and Drug Administration and the CDC found no evidence of salmonella in California cantaloupes.
I don't think there's ever an intent on the part of the agency to create, or any agency, to create a scare.
Well, it's hard to blame somebody who in effect thinks they're doing their job to protect the public.
The public can protect itself by washing melons and cutting them with a clean knife. But in the meantime, thousands of crop workers have lost their jobs, and millions of dollars worth of perfectly good melons are rotting in the fields. Brian Rooney, ABC News, Fresno, California.
Not much movement on Wall Street today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost less than a point to close at 3039. The trading was light. We'll have our final report in a moment.
In recent years, doctors have discovered a flaw in eggs. They're extremely high in cholesterol, and a diet high in cholesterol and fat can contribute to the risk of heart disease. Nutritionists at Fleischmann's have found a way to overcome this flaw with Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the only one that's 99% real egg with zero cholesterol and zero saturated fat. Next time you'd love an egg, crack open a carton. Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the great tasting egg without a flaw.
Now you can ask Angela Lansbury about Bufferin.
Angela, you've said on TV that Bufferin is effective pain relief. Is it really strong aspirin?
I'll say it is. Extra strength Bufferin's the strongest dose of aspirin you can buy. 1,000 milligrams.
Angela, how can Bufferin be so strong if it has buffers?
That's a good question. I've learned the buffers don't weaken it. They just help prevent aspirin's stomach upset. Bufferin's great pain relief.
Shouldn't you discover the strength of Bufferin?
Ziploc presents Fingerman.
Hi, I'm here to demonstrate the Gripper Zipper from Ziploc. Now the easiest closing bag there is. In fact, you can close it even if you're all thumbs.
How you doing?
Yes, the zipper is grabbing hold. It's locking. Feel it close the first time, every time.
Yeah.
Ziploc bags with the Gripper Zipper. The easiest closing bag there is.
Now that was a snap.
Which fast food chain comes out on top in the nutritional battle at breakfast? I'm Bob Mueller. Find out in tonight's Consumer Corner, coming up next at 6.
And finally tonight, rollerblades. If you don't know what they are, ask any one of the kids roaring by. They're those high-speed skates, all the rage in exercise and sport. They look dangerous. It turns out they are. Here's ABC's Gary Shepard.
They are known as rollerblades, ice skates with wheels. Just about every time you turn around, somebody is whizzing by. Bladers, as they're called, can achieve speeds of up to 30 miles an hour. And that's part of the thrill.
They're a lot faster than normal, and if you notice, the only way to brake is on the back of the right foot, which isn't the part I've been able to accomplish yet, but...
In fact, a lot of the 1 million rollerbladers in this country are having trouble stopping. Hospitals here in Southern California are treating dozens of accidents a week. Cuts, broken arms and wrists, knee fractures, and even worse.
We've had at least one case this week where the 14-year-old came in unconscious with significant head injury and skull fractures as a result of a rollerblade accident.
But some people simply ignore the danger.
I work in the emergency room at one of the hospitals here. And I told everyone that I was getting rollerblades, and they couldn't believe it. They're like, you're getting rollerblades? Meanwhile, we're treating scrapes on people's knees, and we've seen about 10 broken wrists and all these on rollerblading injuries.
Many bladers also ignore warnings and forget about wearing protective gear.
If you're going to skate, it's inevitable that you're going to fall, and it just is not necessary for you to hurt yourself if you have the full complement of safety gear on.
Because of complaints that rollerbladers are a nuisance, some communities are beginning to restrict them and fine violators. Just the same, Americans are on a roll this summer, even though they may be skating into trouble. Gary Shepard, ABC News, Venice, California.
And that's our report on World News tonight. I'm Diane Sawyer. For all of us at ABC News, have a good evening and a good night.
And now, the news continues with Channel 2 News at 6.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Mueller.